Welcome to 10 Spot Highlights, where we uncover the most fascinating top 10 lists, from ancient mysteries to groundbreaking future evolutions. Dive into the captivating stories of the past, explore unsolved enigmas, and see how history shapes our tomorrow. Don't miss out. Hit like, subscribe, and explore the rest of our videos for a journey through time and mystery. Your next adventure starts here. Welcome to 10 Spot Highlights, your ultimate destination for unraveling the mysteries of history, myths, and all things spine-chilling. Today, we're counting down the top 10 things said to be haunted. These aren't your run-of-the-mill ghost stories. These places and objects have left even the biggest skeptics questioning everything. And trust me, you'll want to stick around till the end, because our final pick is so unnerving, it might just make you sleep with the lights on. Before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like button, share your favorite haunted stories in the comments, and subscribe for more content that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's dive in, if you dare. 1. The seance that tore open a portal to the unknown. In the shadowy heart of 19th century Paris, a single night changed everything. A seance, a harmless attempt to contact the dead, spiraled into something unspeakable. What began as a gathering of curious minds turned into one of the most terrifying encounters ever whispered about. Picture this: a dimly lit salon thick with the scent of melting wax and anticipation. A group of spiritual seekers, hands trembling as they clasped each other's, sat around a creaking wooden table. At the center of it all, Madame Eloise, a medium renowned for her connection to the otherworldly, whispered incantations into the flickering light of fragile candles. At first it was ordinary, soft knocks from unseen places, faint whispers like leaves rustling in the wind. Then everything shifted. The air grew suffocating, pressing down on their chests as if the room itself was alive. Suddenly, Madame Eloise froze, her eyes rolling back as her mouth opened to speak. Only it wasn't her voice. "You've gone too far." The deep guttural growl cut through the tension, sending shivers through the room. Before anyone could react, the flames of the candles leaped to life, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, shadows that didn't belong to anyone in the room. And then it happened. In the corner, a shadowy figure began to form, taller, darker, and more menacing with every passing second. Its shape was fluid, yet unmistakably malevolent. The temperature plummeted, freezing their breath in the air as an icy wind swept through and extinguished the candles. Darkness swallowed the room. Panic erupted. People screamed, chairs toppled, and footsteps scrambled in every direction. When they finally managed to relight the candles, the figure was gone, but its presence lingered. Rumors quickly spread. Had they opened a portal to something far beyond human comprehension? The aftermath was just as chilling. Those present at the seance claimed their lives were never the same. Nightmares plagued their sleep, shadows seemed to move in ways they shouldn't, and some swore they saw the figure stalking them, its shape reflected in mirrors or lurking in the corners of empty streets. This haunting tale isn't just a warning, it's a question. Would you dare open a door to the unknown, knowing you might never be able to close it again? 2. The Ouija board that foretold a nightmare. It started as a game, a harmless Halloween tradition among friends. But what happened in a small town in Maine on that chilly October night in 1974 became the stuff of nightmares. Picture this: 5 college friends huddled in the dusty attic of a creaky Victorian house, the kind that seems alive with its groans and whispers. Candles cast dancing shadows on the walls as the scent of melted wax and aged wood filled the air. On the floor between them sat the infamous Ouija board, its glossy surface reflecting the flickering flames. Laughter broke the tension as the session began, their fingers lightly resting on the planchette. "Who's here with us?" someone asked, half joking. To their surprise, the planchette began to move. Slowly, deliberately, it spelled out strange, fragmented phrases. At first, they dismissed it as a prank, someone in the group surely pushing it for fun. But then the board spelled out a name no one recognized. Malak. Confusion turned to unease. "Who is Malak?" they asked. The planchette glided across the board with chilling precision. "I am here." The room grew icy, and the candles flickered violently. Tension hung thick in the air. The board began spelling out warnings. "Leave now," and "You're not safe." One friend, Jim, laughed nervously, brushing it off. "Oh yeah? What are you going to do?" he taunted. And that's when the game became a nightmare. A deafening crash shattered the silence. The attic window exploded inward, shards of glass scattering across the room. The wind outside was still. The group screamed, scrambling to end the session, but the board wouldn't let them go. The planchette moved faster, spelling out one final bone-chilling message. Too late. The real horror began after that night. Doors slammed shut on their own. Objects disappeared and reappeared in strange places. Shadows moved where there was no light, and whispers echoed in empty rooms. The group was terrified, but Jim suffered the worst. Vivid nightmares tormented his sleep, and when he woke, unexplained scratches lined his arms and back, fresh and bleeding. Desperate to end the madness, they destroyed the Ouija board, burning it in a fire and swearing never to speak of that night again. But the damage was done. The haunting lingered, a constant reminder of the dangers they had unleashed. Do you think Ouija boards are just innocent toys? Or are they a gateway to something darker, something that doesn't play by our rules? 3. The Bell Witch, the spirit that claimed a life. In the misty hills of early 19th century Tennessee, one family's quiet life turned into an unimaginable nightmare. The Bell family, once ordinary farmers, became the unwilling hosts of one of the most infamous hauntings in American history, an encounter that would end in tragedy. It began innocently enough. Faint knocking sounds echoed through the Bell home, soft enough to be dismissed. But as the nights passed, the disturbances grew louder and more sinister. By the time eerie voices began calling out their names in the darkness, the family realized they weren't alone. Desperate for answers, the Bells did the unthinkable. They tried to communicate. They spoke aloud to the unseen presence, asking it questions. At first, only whispers replied, faint and unintelligible. But then the whispers grew bolder, clearer, until one night the entity spoke. It called itself Kate. Kate claimed to be the vengeful spirit of a neighbor who had been wronged by the family. At first, her presence was unsettling but manageable. She sang hymns, recited sermons, and even engaged visitors in conversation. But as time went on, Kate revealed a darker side. She didn't just haunt, she tormented. Family members were slapped by invisible hands, their hair yanked violently, and their nights shattered by blood-curdling screams. Even visitors to the Bell home weren't spared. Many left terrified, reporting scratches, pushes, and a suffocating sense of dread. The family tried everything to rid themselves of Kate. They prayed, they made offerings, they even attempted to ignore her. But Kate wasn't just a ghost. She was something far more powerful. Her presence grew stronger, her voice louder, until one day she made a chilling declaration, "I will kill John Bell." The patriarch of the family, John Bell, soon fell gravely ill. His health deteriorated rapidly, despite the family's frantic efforts to save him. On the day he died, Kate's laughter echoed through the house, a triumphant, mocking sound that haunted them long after John was gone. Even in death, Kate didn't leave. The Bell Witch legend persisted, her story passed down through generations as a warning of what happens when you dare to communicate with a force beyond your control. So now the question is yours to answer. If faced with a vengeful spirit like the Bell Witch, would you attempt to communicate or would you run? 4 Inches Franklin's Mirror, the experiment that tore through reality. In the shadowy corners of the late 1800s, one man dared to challenge the boundaries between the living and the dead. Dr. Alaric Franklin, an eccentric inventor and occult enthusiast, was consumed by a dangerous idea that mirrors could be portals to other dimensions. His obsession led to an experiment so chilling that its echoes still haunt the Scottish Highlands to this day. Dr. Franklin's masterpiece was no ordinary mirror. Massive and ornate, its frame was carved with intricate symbols of ancient, forbidden origin. The glass itself shimmered unnaturally, laced with precious metals believed to amplify spiritual energy. He believed this mirror could do more than reflect the living. It could reveal the faces of the dead. On a cold, moonless night, Dr. Franklin invited a select group of guests to his remote estate. These were not ordinary spectators, but seekers of the paranormal, each drawn by the promise of glimpsing the beyond. In a darkened room lit only by the flicker of trembling candles, the mirror stood like an ominous gateway. At first, the guests saw nothing but their own reflections. The air was still, the room unnervingly silent. But as Dr. Franklin began chanting in a guttural, unrecognizable tongue, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature plummeted, the air grew thick, and the flickering candlelight seemed to dim on its own. Then it began. The mirror rippled like liquid, its surface warping and shifting. Shadows danced across it, forming shapes, faces. At first, the faces were sorrowful, gazing out with empty, hollow eyes. But soon their expressions contorted into anger, rage, and despair. Panic set in as one of the faces pressed forward, its hands splayed against the inside of the glass. A crack splintered across the mirror's surface, releasing a high-pitched wail that sent chills down their spines. The guests screamed and tried to flee, but the heavy wooden door refused to open, trapping them in the room. Dr. Franklin, unfazed and exhilarated, continued chanting as the faces grew more defined, their eyes glowing with otherworldly fire. Then, the impossible happened. A pale, ghostly hand pushed through the mirror's surface, followed by a twisted skeletal arm. One of the guests collapsed to the floor as the others pleaded with Franklin to stop. But it was too late. With a deafening crash, the mirror shattered, shards flying in every direction. The faces vanished, the wailing stopped, but the room was left freezing cold. The walls were scarred with claw-like scratches, as though something had tried to claw its way fully into this world. Dr. Franklin's mirror was never seen again. Some say he destroyed it, realizing the horror he'd unleashed. Others whisper that it was hidden, locked away to prevent further catastrophe. Yet, even now, locals near the abandoned estate claim to see strange lights and hear faint whispers, an unsettling reminder of what was summoned that night. Would you dare to stand before a haunted mirror, knowing what might reach back from the other side? 5. The Curse of the Devil's Playbook, the ritual that should never have been. In the depths of a forgotten library basement in 1933 Chicago, a group of friends unearthed a discovery that would change their lives forever. Amid the dust and decay, they stumbled upon an ancient leather-bound book unlike anything they had ever seen. Its cover was etched with strange, menacing symbols, and its pages were filled with rituals and incantations written in an indecipherable arcane language. Intrigued by its sinister aura, they jokingly called it the Devil's Playbook. But their curiosity got the better of them. What harm could it do? Late one evening, in a dimly lit apartment surrounded by flickering candles, they decided to try one of the book's simpler rituals. The instructions were cryptic but straightforward. They drew a salt circle on the floor, placed a mirror in its center, and began chanting the incantation aloud. Laughter masked their nervousness as they stumbled over the strange, otherworldly words. At first, nothing happened. The room was silent, save for the faint crackle of candlelight. Then the mirror in the circle fogged up, as though someone or something were breathing on it. Slowly, words began to appear on the glass, written by an unseen hand. "Hello." Startled but excited, one of them asked, "Who are you?" The mirror responded, "A friend." The tension eased, and they continued, emboldened by the seemingly harmless exchange. But as the questions continued, the answers turned darker. "I'm not alone," the mirror wrote. Then came the chilling revelation. "You invited us." The room's atmosphere shifted, growing unbearably heavy. One candle went out, then another, until only shadows remained. Suddenly, the book on the table flew open, its pages flipping furiously as if guided by an unseen force. A low, guttural voice filled the room, growling, "Finish what you started." Panic set in. The friends scrambled to close the book, desperate to stop whatever they had unleashed, but the book refused to shut. The mirror shattered with an ear-splitting crack, sending shards flying across the room. One of the friends collapsed to the floor, convulsing as if gripped by an invisible force. Desperate, they hurled the book into the fireplace. Flames erupted, devouring the ancient pages, and the voice screamed, a piercing, otherworldly sound that seemed to shake the walls. When the fire finally died down, the room fell into an eerie silence. The friend who collapsed survived but was never the same. For months he claimed to hear whispers, even when alone. As for the book, its ashes were buried far away, sealed from the world. The group vowed never to speak of that night again, but they all knew the truth. Curiosity had led them to summon something they could never understand or control. So, if you stumbled upon an ancient book of mysterious rituals, would you open it? Or would you walk away, knowing that some doors are better left unopened? 6. The Crying Doll of Amelia, the haunted antique that watches you. In the heart of Florence, Italy, nestled in the corner of a quaint antique shop, sits one of the most unsettling objects ever discovered, a doll named Amelia. At first glance, Amelia appears to be a beautifully crafted antique, her porcelain face delicate, her glassy blue eyes eerily lifelike. But there's something about her, a haunting sadness etched into her expression, as if she carries a sorrow too heavy for words. Amelia's story begins in 1987, when she arrived at the shop as part of an estate sale. Her previous owner was a wealthy widow with no heirs, and the doll was said to have been her most prized possession. But from the moment Amelia was placed on display, the shop was never the same. The lights began to flicker without reason. Items tumbled from shelves when no one was near, and at night, the shopkeeper would hear faint sobbing, though he was completely alone. Word of the mysterious doll spread quickly, and Amelia became the focus of whispered rumors and curious visitors. Intrigued by the stories, a journalist named Marco decided to investigate. Determined to separate fact from fiction, he borrowed Amelia for a week, intending to document any strange occurrences. At first, nothing happened. Marco began to think the stories were just superstitions. But on the second night, everything changed. He was jolted awake by the sound of soft crying. It seemed to be coming from the living room. When Marco entered the room, his heart froze. Amelia was sitting in a different spot than where he had left her, her head tilted slightly as if she were watching him. Over the next few nights, the activity grew more sinister. Marco heard whispers in the dead of night, words he couldn't make out, spoken in a voice that didn't belong to him. Footsteps echoed through his apartment, though no one was there. Amelia began to move on her own, appearing in different rooms, her glassy eyes fixed on him no matter where he went. On the final night, desperate for answers, Marco set up a camera to capture any activity. What he saw the next morning left him shaken. In the footage, Amelia's head turned slowly toward the camera, her eyes blinking deliberately, as if she were aware she was being watched. Terrified, Marco returned the doll to the shop immediately. But even after parting ways with Amelia, the experience haunted him. He often spoke of feeling as though someone, or something, was still watching him. To this day, Amelia remains unsold, encased in glass in the antique shop. Visitors flock to see her, drawn by her eerie reputation. Many claim they can feel her eyes following them as they move, and some have even reported hearing faint sobbing as they stand near her case. Would you dare to keep a doll like Amelia in your home, knowing the darkness she carries? Or would you leave her behind, locked away where she belongs? 7. The Seance of Sarah Winchester, unlocking the secrets of the haunted mystery house. In 1920, under the veil of a crisp autumn night, the enigmatic Sarah Winchester, the reclusive heiress of the Winchester rifle fortune, conducted a seance that remains shrouded in mystery and terror. Deep within the labyrinthine corridors of her sprawling Winchester mystery house in San Jose, California, she sought to communicate directly with the restless spirits she believed haunted her. This wasn't Sarah's first brush with the supernatural. For decades, she had obsessively expanded her mansion, creating staircases that led nowhere, doors that opened to sheer drops, and hallways that looped endlessly. She believed these architectural oddities could confuse and appease the spirits of those killed by her family's rifles. But this seance was different. Sarah was no longer trying to evade the spirits. She was inviting them in. In a hidden seance room designed with uncanny precision, Sarah gathered a trusted group of spiritual mediums. The room itself was a masterpiece of mystery. 13 hooks hung from the ceiling, a single door led to a dead end, and the air seemed charged with an otherworldly energy. As the group sat around a wooden table, the flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows that seemed to twist and writhe on the walls. Sarah, clad in her iconic black morning gown, placed her hands on the table and began the ritual. The silence was palpable, broken only by the faint creaks of the ever-shifting house. Then it began, a soft tapping, as though invisible fingers were knocking on the walls from within. The air grew heavy, suffocating and unnervingly cold. One of the mediums whispered, "If there are spirits among us, show yourselves." The response was immediate. The table shuddered, vibrating under their hands. The faint tapping grew louder, becoming rhythmic and deliberate. Sarah's face was illuminated by a flickering candle, her expression one of determination laced with fear. And then the footsteps began. Echoing through the winding hallways, they drew closer with each passing second. The seance room door creaked open slowly, revealing only an impenetrable darkness beyond. But the true terror struck when the chandelier above began to swing violently, its metal chains groaning under the strain. The flames of the candles extinguished in unison, plunging the room into darkness. Suddenly, an unearthly voice filled the air, whispering Sarah's name, dragging it out like a mournful wail. "Sarah!" The sound was unlike anything the group had ever heard, neither human nor animal, but something entirely other. The mediums broke into panicked cries, their hands releasing the table as they scrambled for the door. But Sarah didn't move. In the chaos, she sat perfectly still, her eyes closed as though listening intently. When the seance ended, she calmly declared she had received vital instructions from the spirits, directions for the next stage of her home's construction. To this day, the seance room remains one of the most mysterious and unsettling places in the Winchester Mystery House. Visitors report hearing faint whispers, feeling icy drafts, and sensing unseen eyes watching them. It's as if the spirit Sarah invited never truly left. Would you dare to sit in the seance room of one of the world's most haunted mansions and call out to the spirits of the dead? Or would you, like so many before, flee the house and never look back? 8. The Unholy Experiment of Father Lucian, a battle with the devil himself. In the shadowy heart of 19th century France, a forgotten village became the stage for one of the most chilling confrontations with the supernatural ever recorded. Father Lucian, a devout but unorthodox priest, was a man consumed by a dangerous obsession. With tales of demonic possession spreading like wildfire, he sought not just to protect his flock, but to prove the existence of the devil himself, and he would stop at nothing, even if it meant summoning the very thing he sought to banish. Against the vehement warnings of his peers, Father Lucian buried himself in forbidden texts, writings whispered to be penned by witches, heretics, and those who had danced with darkness. He meticulously constructed a ritual chamber beneath the village church, its walls etched with prayers and symbols meant to bind and protect. At its center lay a pentagram, inscribed with ancient precision, surrounded by candles that seemed to flicker with anticipation. On a moonless, deathly still night, Father Lucian descended into the chamber. Alone in the suffocating darkness, he began his ritual, his chants echoing through the stone walls. The Latin verses grew louder, their cadence building like the tolling of an ominous bell. At first the room was silent, the air heavy with expectation. Then it began. The ground beneath the pentagram trembled, as though the earth itself recoiled from what was being unleashed. Shadows leapt to life, twisting and contorting into grotesque forms that writhed on the chamber walls. The air became thick with the nauseating stench of sulfur, and the candles sputtered, their flames shrinking to near extinction. A low, guttural growl emerged from the void, a sound that seemed to pierce both the ears and the soul. Before Father Lucien's horrified gaze, a figure began to take shape within the pentagram. Its eyes burned like molten fire, and its clawed hands twitched with a terrifying predatory anticipation. The demon had arrived. The creature spoke, its voice a cacophony of mockery and malevolence, reverberating from every corner of the chamber. It taunted Father Lucian, calling him a fool for daring to summon powers he could not control. "Did you think your prayers would protect you?" it hissed, stepping closer to the edge of the pentagram. Desperate, the priest clutched his crucifix and began reciting prayers of exorcism, his voice trembling but resolute. The demon laughed, a sound that was both human and inhuman, shaking the very foundation of the church above. As Father Lucien's voice wavered, the protective symbols etched into the ground began to fade, as if erased by an unseen, malevolent hand. The tension reached its breaking point when the demon lunged forward, claws outstretched. Time seemed to freeze as it reached the edge of the pentagram, and then, with a deafening roar, it vanished in a blinding burst of flame. The room was left scorched and silent, the only sound the ragged breathing of the shaken priest. When Father Lucien emerged from the chamber, his hair had turned ghostly white, and his once fiery resolve was replaced with a haunted, hollow look. From that day forward, his sermons became desperate warnings about tampering with forces beyond human comprehension. The chamber beneath the church was sealed, its horrors buried, but the villagers whispered that the demon was never truly banished. Some claim its presence can still be felt, flickering lights in the church, cold drafts in the summer heat, and faint mocking laughter echoing in the still of night. Would you have the courage to step into Father Lucian's shoes, to summon the unholy in a quest for the truth, knowing it might cost you your very soul? 9. The Possession of Clara Reeves, a night of unimaginable horror. In the quiet town of Fallbrook, Indiana, the Reeves family lived an unremarkable life until 1972, when their 17-year-old daughter, Clara, became the epicenter of a horrifying ordeal. It began innocently enough. Clara started waking up in the middle of the night, claiming to hear whispers. Her family dismissed it as nightmares, but soon the disturbances became undeniable. Chairs would slide across the floor on their own. Doors slammed shut without warning. Clara began muttering strange, guttural phrases in her sleep, phrases in languages she couldn't possibly know. As weeks passed, Clara's condition worsened. Her behavior grew erratic, punctuated by violent outbursts and moments of eerie calm. She would glare at her family with piercing eyes, uttering secrets she had no way of knowing. When doctors found no medical explanation, the Reeves family turned to their church in desperation. Father Michael, a seasoned but skeptical priest, visited the family home to observe Clara. What he saw left him shaken. Clara greeted him by name, recounting sins he had never spoken aloud. Her voice was not her own. It was deep, mocking, and filled with malice. Convinced of demonic possession, Father Michael agreed to perform an exorcism. The ritual took place in Clara's small, dimly lit bedroom. Crucifixes adorned the walls, and the faint scent of incense hung in the air. The family huddled together in the hallway, their faces pale with fear. Father Michael began the prayers, his voice steady but strained. Clara sat motionless on her bed, her head bowed, until suddenly she looked up. Her eyes were pitch black, her lips curling into a sinister smile. "You think you can save her?" The voice growled, echoing unnaturally in the room. Father Michael pressed on, sprinkling holy water as Clara recoiled, hissing like a cornered animal. Her body contorted in unnatural ways, bending backward at impossible angles. The air grew icy cold and the lights flickered violently. As the priest continued, Clara began to levitate, her body rising several feet off the bed. The family screamed, but Father Michael shouted over them, commanding the entity to leave in the name of God. Suddenly, an unseen force hurled him across the room, slamming him into the wall. Clara let out a guttural laugh, her voice overlapping with whispers that seemed to come from every corner. The exorcism stretched on for 8 agonizing hours. Clara alternated between violent fits and moments of haunting clarity, where she begged for help in her own voice, tears streaming down her face. "Don't leave me," she whispered before her voice was overtaken again. Finally, as dawn broke, Father Michael recited the final prayer. Clara let out a piercing, blood-curdling scream that rattled the windows. Then, silence. Her body collapsed onto the bed, motionless. When Clara awoke hours later, she had no memory of what had happened. The Reeves family, however, would never forget. They moved out of the house within weeks, leaving Clara's bedroom boarded up, a grim reminder of the horrors they had endured. To this day, the abandoned house remains a local legend, with rumors of strange noises and flickering lights seen from Clara's room. Would you have the courage to witness an exorcism, knowing the risks of facing pure evil? Or would you leave such terrifying battles to others? 10. The Shadow Letters, the cursed correspondence of Benjamin Orwick. In 1912, Benjamin Orwick, a celebrated yet enigmatic writer of macabre novels, resided in a remote manor on the English countryside. Known for his dark imagination and fascination with the occult, Orwick lived in solitude, surrounded by stacks of old books and strange artifacts collected over the years. But what few knew was that his fascination wasn't just creative, it was an obsession that would lead him into the unknown. It began innocently enough when Benjamin discovered a peculiar leather-bound book in a dusty corner of a London antique shop. The book's pages were covered in cryptic symbols and instructions on how to contact spirits through written correspondence. Intrigued, Benjamin decided to experiment. Following the book's instructions, he wrote a letter addressed to the world beyond and left it on his desk overnight. The next morning, he found a reply. Written in a delicate, spidery hand unlike his own, the letter claimed to be from a watcher, an entity that had observed him for years. At first, the letters were benign, recounting obscure events from long before Benjamin's birth, things he could never have known. But as the exchanges continued, the tone grew sinister. The entities warned of an unseen force drawing closer, urging him to stop his correspondence before it was too late. But Benjamin, ever the skeptic and thrill-seeker, refused to heed the warnings. Night after night he wrote, and night after night the replies appeared, each one more disturbing than the last. Shadows began to move in the corners of his study, independent of any light source. A chill settled over the manor, even on the warmest days. Objects moved inexplicably, and the faint sound of whispering voices filled the empty halls. As the weeks passed, friends who visited the reclusive writer noticed unsettling changes. Benjamin, once a meticulous man, appeared gaunt and disheveled. His handwriting, once bold and confident, began to resemble the eerie script of the letters he received. When confronted, he brushed off their concerns, dismissing the phenomena as overactive imaginations. Then came the night of his final letter. On that fateful evening, Benjamin penned a letter asking the entities to reveal themselves. Hours later, the villagers reported seeing strange lights flickering in the windows of his manor. The next morning, Benjamin was gone. When authorities entered his study, they found it in utter chaos. Papers were strewn across the floor, his bookshelves toppled, and his writing desk bore deep scratches as if clawed by something inhuman. On the desk lay a single sheet of paper, bearing the message, "He is one of us now." The handwriting was unmistakably the same spidery script from the shadow letters. Benjamin Orwick was never seen again. His disappearance baffled investigators, and his home was abandoned, left to decay. Over the years, rumors spread that fragments of his correspondence had resurfaced, passed secretly between collectors of the occult. Those who came into possession of the letters claimed to suffer nightmares, unexplained accidents, and bouts of madness, leading many to believe the writings carried a dark curse. To this day, the story of Benjamin Orwick remains a chilling mystery. Was he consumed by the very spirits he sought to contact, or did he fall victim to his own madness? Perhaps some questions are better left unanswered. Would you dare to write a letter to the world beyond, knowing the horrors that might reply? Or do you believe some doors should remain closed forever? Thank you for joining us as we explored the 10 most terrifying attempts to communicate with the world of ghosts and demons. Each of these chilling tales serves as a haunting reminder of what might lurk just beyond our understanding. So, what do you think? Are these stories undeniable proof of the supernatural or cautionary tales born from our imagination? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your bravest friends, and hit that subscribe button for more spine-tingling dives into the unknown. We want to hear from you. Which story gave you chills? Or do you have your own eerie experience to share? Drop it in the comments below. We're dying to know. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and always beware of the shadows. Double asterisk. Thanks for watching 10 Spot Highlights, where the past, present, and future collide in our top 10 lists. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to join us on more fascinating adventures through time and mystery. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned. There's so much more to uncover in our next video. See you soon.